In the last video, I, the insane dreamer, opened the gates of the Dreamlands for you. I showed you that when you close your eyes at night, you're not just dreaming. You're traveling to a parallel dimension, as physical and real as the bed you're lying in. You met Randolph Carter, the greatest explorer of that world. You saw Karains, the king who abandoned reality to live forever in his own dream city. You've discovered that the cats of Ulthar are intelligent, that Gugs devour unwary travelers, and that Nyarlathotep uses that realm as his personal playground. But that was just scratching the surface. Today, you won't just observe the Dreamlands from a distance. Today, I'm taking you inside. We're going to walk the streets of forbidden cities. We're going to descend into underground tunnels where ancient monsters hunt in the dark. We're going to understand the exact ritual that dreamers use to enter that world consciously. Subscribe now, because what comes next will completely change how you think about your dreams. So let's recap the essentials, quickly, because we've got a lot of ground to cover. The Dreamlands aren't dreams. They're a parallel dimension where your consciousness travels every single night. Most people wander the edges, the hazy places, and wake up thinking it was all imagination. But some experienced dreamers discovered the secret. They enter consciously and with control. Time works differently there. You can live months in that world and wake up to find only hours have passed here. Or sleep one night and experience entire decades. And here's the danger. The deeper you go, the harder it is to come back. If you stay too long, your mind might not find the way back. Your body keeps breathing here, but you're trapped there, in a coma here, conscious there, a ghost imprisoned on the other side. And if you die in the Dreamlands, if a creature tears you apart, if you fall off a cliff, psychic shock can stop your heart in the physical world. Or worse, leave you trapped there forever, wandering as a bodiless spirit, unable to wake, unable to fully die. The Dreamlands are vast, cities of black onyx, endless oceans, enchanted forests, creatures ranging from the intelligent cats of Ulthar to 20-foot-tall Gugs with vertical mouths. And at the center of it all, Kadath, the unknown city of Earth's gods, deliberately hidden. Now that you remember the basics, it's time to go deeper, much deeper. You want to know how to consciously enter the Dreamlands. There's a ritual, a process that experienced dreamers master over years. First, you need to understand that sleep isn't binary. It's not simply awake or asleep. There are layers, depths, and the Dreamlands exist at a specific dimensional frequency, accessible only when you reach the right state of consciousness. The ancients called it the 700 steps of lighter sleep. They're not physical steps. They're layers of consciousness you descend through as you fall asleep. Most people plummet through these steps without control, without noticing. But a conscious dreamer learns to descend slowly, deliberately, counting each step. The first 100 steps are easy. You still feel your body, still hear the sounds of the physical world, your heartbeat, your breathing, the weight of the blanket. Between step 100 and 200, you start losing the sense of your physical body. Sensations become distant, like you're floating. This is where most people lose focus and fall into regular sleep. From step 200 to 400, you need to keep your mind clear while your body falls completely asleep. It's a fine line. If you lose consciousness, you wake up in the morning remembering nothing. If you maintain too much consciousness, you can't advance. Between 400 and 600, you start seeing fragments, images, places that don't exist in the physical world. Your consciousness is detaching, beginning to travel, but you haven't arrived yet. The last 100 steps, from 600 to 700, are the hardest. Here, you feel resistance, like something is testing you, judging whether you're worthy to enter consciously. Because at the end of the 700 steps, there's a portal. The portal of deep sleep isn't a physical structure in the sense you know. It's a tear in reality, a passage between dimensions, and it has guardians. Nasht and Kaman-Thah, two ancient priests who have watched over the entrance to the Dreamlands for countless ages. They appear as tall, hooded figures with skin that looks carved from dark stone. Their faces are vague, as if seen through thick fog. They stand in a cavern of eternal flame. Not ordinary flames. Cold fire that doesn't burn, but illuminates everything with a pulsing, greenish light. The cavern walls are covered in symbols, hieroglyphs that change when you're not looking directly at them. When you reach the end of the 700 steps, Nasht and Kaman-Thah see you, and they ask questions, not with words, with thoughts that arise directly in your mind. Why do you seek the Dreamlands? What do you hope to find? Are you prepared to pay the price? Most people can't answer. They panic, lose concentration, and are expelled back into regular sleep. They wake up in the morning with a vague sense that something important happened, but can't remember what. But if you answer with clarity, if you demonstrate true purpose, the guardians step aside and the portal opens. It's a sensation of falling, of passing through a dimensional membrane. Your stomach turns, your vision darkens, and then you're there, standing on a smooth stone road, beneath a sky of colors that don't exist in the physical world. The air has a different smell, spices and flowers you've never seen. In the distance, you see the towers of a city. You hear strange voices. You feel the cold wind coming from distant mountains. Welcome to the Dreamlands. You've entered consciously. Now, it remains to be seen if you can get out. Hit that like button if you're already feeling the urge to try this ritual tonight. The first region most dreamers explore is the enchanted forest. It seems safe. Enormous trees with trunks the size of buildings, foliage so dense it blocks almost all sunlight, transforming day into a green and golden twilight. But the enchanted forest has two problems. First, time doesn't work right there. Walk into those trees and you can wander for hours thinking you're going in a straight line, only to discover you're in the same place. Or worse, you walk for 10 minutes, and when you emerge, weeks have passed in the outer world beyond the forest. Second, the Zoogs. The Zoogs seem harmless at first. Small creatures, brown, about the size of large cats, rodent-like. They have pointed snouts, dark, intelligent eyes, and move in almost absolute silence. A single Zoog is curious. It'll watch you from the trees, make small noises, maybe even approach if you offer food. They especially like fungi, the bioluminescent mushrooms that grow on rotting trunks. The problem is that Zoogs are never alone. They live in packs of hundreds, and they have a cruel intelligence. They communicate with each other through high-pitched whistles that echo through the forest. And when they decide you're a threat, or worse, when they decide you're food, they attack en masse. Imagine walking through the forest. You hear a whistle, then another, then 10. You look up and see hundreds of pairs of eyes glowing in the darkness of the canopy. They descend. The Zoogs surround you, jumping from branch to branch, forming a circle that keeps closing in. And then they attack. Not all at once. That would be too quick. They attack in waves. 5 or 6 jump on you, bite, scratch, and retreat before you can react. Then 5 more, then more. They'll cut you down piece by piece, bleed you out, weaken you. And when you finally fall, exhausted, bleeding, unable to keep fighting, they'll devour you, starting with the eyes and tongue, the soft parts. The only defense against the Zoogs is having allies, cats especially. The Zoogs have an instinctive fear of the cats of Ulthar. A single pack of 3 or 4 cats is enough to disperse hundreds of Zoogs. So, if you need to cross the enchanted forest, pray you find cats, or avoid the forest completely. Ulthar is unlike any other city in the Dreamlands. It's not large. It doesn't have onyx towers or golden palaces. It's a simple city of light stone and slate roofs, narrow and cozy streets. But in Ulthar, cats walk the streets as citizens. And there's an absolute law known throughout all the Dreamlands. In Ulthar, no man may kill a cat. The punishment for breaking this law, nobody knows for sure, because nobody who broke it lived to tell. But there's a story, the story of how this law came to be. Long ago, Ulthar was an ordinary city, and on the outskirts of town lived an old couple, a man and woman who hated cats. They trapped cats in snares, tortured them, killed them in horrible ways. The townspeople knew, but were afraid of the couple. There was something wrong about them, something that made people avoid looking directly at them. One day, a caravan of strange people camped near. They were travelers from distant lands, with colorful clothes and dark eyes. Among them was a boy named Meanies. Meanies had a kitten, a small black cat he loved more than anything. But one night, the kitten disappeared. Meanies searched everywhere, crying, desperate. Someone from town told him the truth. The old couple had probably taken his cat. Meanies stopped crying. He went silent. And that night, when the moon was full and red in the sky, he climbed a hill outside town, and he said a prayer. Nobody knows exactly what he said. Nobody heard the words. But everyone in Ulthar felt something change that night. The air grew heavy. Dogs began to howl. And all the cats in town, hundreds of them, disappeared. The next morning, the caravan left. Meanies departed without saying anything. And the people of Ulthar realized the cats had returned. All of them, licking their whiskers. Satisfied, someone gathered the courage to go to the old couple's house. The door was open, and inside, on the floor, were the bodies, or what was left of them, torn apart, devoured, the bones picked clean, and the marks on the floor, on the walls, left no doubt, claws, hundreds of them. Since that day, the law was established. In Ulthar, no man may kill a cat, and the cats of Ulthar became more than animals. They became guardians, judges, and sometimes executioners. If you visit Ulthar, treat the cats with respect, offer food, give affection, pinned, and if you befriend them, they can protect you in places where no human could. Dylath-Leen is the largest port city in the Dreamlands. Its towers of black basalt rise like twisted fingers against the sky, and the harbor never sleeps. Day and night, ships dock and depart, bringing goods from every imaginable region. You can buy almost anything in Dylath-Leen. Spices from forgotten lands, fabrics that change color with the light, wines that give visions of other dimensions, books written in languages nobody speaks anymore. But the real trade of Dylath-Leen, the trade that keeps the city wealthy, happens at night, at the distant docks, where the black galleys moor. The black galleys are immense. Ships of wood dark as ebony, with no visible sails, that move silently through the waters. Their crews wear turbans that completely cover their heads. They never speak. They communicate through gestures, and they bring rubies. Rubies the size of fists. Stones that glow with their own light, red as fresh blood. So valuable that a single ruby can buy an entire mansion in any Dreamland city. The merchants of Dylath-Leen will sell anything to obtain these rubies. Anything. But there's a secret the merchants try to hide. A secret about who pilots the black galleys and what they really want. The turbaned men aren't human. Beneath the cloth, they hide horns. Twisted horns like those of rams. They're the Men of Leng, inhabitants of the Forbidden Plateau in the frozen far north. And what they buy with their rubies aren't spices or fabrics. They're slaves. Specifically, fat slaves, large people, well-fed. The merchants of Dylath-Leen drug unwary travelers, or buy prisoners from other cities, and sell them to the black galleys. Where do these slaves go? To the moon. The physical moon you see in the sky at night. Because in the Dreamlands, the moon is inhabited, and in the lunar caverns live the moon beasts. The moon beasts are amorphous. Masses of gray and pink flesh, without defined shape, that move like giant slugs. They have something like tentacles, but they're actually extensions of their soft bodies. And they have mouths, many mouths. The moon beasts feed on human flesh, and the Men of Leng who serve them as slaves do the dirty work of capturing food for their masters. So if you go to Dylath-Leen, admire the towers, buy spices, drink the wines, but never, ever accept an invitation to visit the distant docks at night. And if you see a black galley mooring, go to the other side of the city, because if they capture you, you'll spend the rest of your life, which won't be long, in the frozen caverns of the moon, waiting to be devoured. There's an ancient story in the Dreamlands, a story of genocide, revenge, and proof that even in that dream world, some things are never forgotten. 10,000 years ago, on the shores of a great lake, there existed a city called Ibe. Its inhabitants weren't human. They were amphibious. Creatures with gray-green skin, bulging eyes, and wide mouths. They didn't speak like humans, but made guttural sounds Dreamlands and worshipped a lizard god named Bokrog. Ibe was ancient, peaceful. Its inhabitants lived in harmony with the lake, fishing, building temples of green stone for Bokrog, practicing strange but non-violent rituals. Then the humans came. They built a city on the other side of the lake, a city called Sarnath, and the humans of Sarnath found the creatures of Ibe repulsive. Their way of moving, their rituals, their appearance. The humans of Sarnath decided that such horrible creatures didn't deserve to live. One night, the warriors of Sarnath crossed the lake in 1,000 boats. They invaded Ibe and killed everyone. Men, women, children, none were spared. They burned the temples, desecrated the idol of Bokrog, and took the treasures of Ibe back to Sarnath as war trophies. Sarnath prospered after that. It became the richest and most powerful city in the Dreamlands. Its palaces were covered in gold. Its towers reached the sky. Its kings considered themselves the wisest and most powerful of all time. 1,000 years passed, and on the 1,000th anniversary of the destruction of Ibe, on the most festive night Sarnath had ever seen, something happened. The waters of the lake began to glow with a greenish light. A thick fog rose from the surface and spread through the city, and in that fog, figures began to appear. They were the inhabitants of Ibe, or what remained of them. Ghosts, specters, but they weren't alone. With them came Bokrog, the lizard god they worshipped. And Bokrog had waited 1,000 years for that moment. What happened that night is hard to describe. The city itself seemed to melt. The towers sank into the ground. The palaces transformed into ruins, and the people of Sarnath went mad. They attacked each other, tore each other apart, screamed until their throats bled. When dawn came, Sarnath no longer existed, only submerged ruins. And where once there had been a glorious city, now there was only a fetid swamp. Bokrog had fulfilled his promise. 1,000 years of patience, 1,000 years of waiting, and then total revenge. The story of Sarnath teaches a fundamental lesson of the Dreamlands. Actions have consequences. And in the Dreamlands, where ancient gods still walk and memories never die, revenge may take millennia, but it always arrives. If you ever find the ruins of Sarnath, if you see the green stones covered in slime, if you hear strange sounds coming from the lake, don't stay, because Bokrog still watches that place, and he hasn't forgotten. Share this video with that friend who loves divine revenge stories. Beneath the Dreamlands exists another world, a labyrinth of tunnels and caverns that extends for miles in every direction. Banned in that underworld dwelt creatures that were banished from the surface ages ago. The Gugs are the kings of the underworld. They stand 20 feet tall. Their bodies are disproportionate, with arms too long, short, thick legs, covered in dark, stiff fur. But the most terrifying thing is the face, or the lack of it. A Gug doesn't have a human face. It has a vertical mouth that opens from the top of its head to the middle of its chest, and inside that mouth are rows and rows of teeth. When a Gug opens its mouth completely, you see straight down its throat, straight into the darkness of its interior. They have 4 arms. Each arm ends in claws that can tear through stone. And despite their size, They move fast, very fast. The Gugs were banished from the upper lands by Earth's gods long ago for forgotten crimes. They were forced to live in the dark, in eternal tunnels, forbidden to ascend to the surface under penalty of divine destruction. But the Gugs haven't forgotten sunlight. They haven't forgotten the lands above. And sometimes, on especially dark nights, when the gods aren't paying attention, they climb. There's a stairway, an infinite stairway that connects the underworld to the forests above. It's made of black stone and descends deeper than any human can count. At the top of this stairway is an enormous stone door, a door closed for millennia. But the door has cracks, and through these cracks, sometimes a Gug can squeeze through. If you're walking alone at night on the surface and you hear a sound, a sound like heavy, hoarse breathing coming from the darkness, run, because it might be a Gug, and if it is, your only chance is not being seen. A single Gug can tear apart 10 armed men before anyone can scream for help. It'll grab you with 2 arms, hold you in place with the other 2, and then open that vertical mouth. And the last thing you'll see is darkness full of teeth descending upon you. The ghasts are worse than the Gugs, in a more subtle way, because the Gugs are obvious predators. You know you should fear them. The ghasts seem almost human, until you look closely. They're approximately the size and shape of humans, but they walk on all 4s. Their bodies are too thin, angular, as if they have no fat, just bone and dry muscle. The skin is grey-green, moist, like something that lives under rocks. But the worst part is the faces. They have almost human faces. Almost. The eyes are too large, without eyelids, always wide open. The mouth is wide, full of sharp, uneven teeth. And when they breathe, you hear a hissing, wet sound. The ghasts live in parts of the underworld where even the Gugs avoid going, in deep pits full of bones, in caverns where the air is so fetid it burns your lungs. They feed on carrion, anything dead, and sometimes, when food is scarce, they hunt in silent packs. They surround their prey, approach from all sides, and then attack all at once. 1 ghast alone is dangerous. 5 are deadly. 20 are a massacre, and they have a cruel intelligence. They've learned that humans make noise when they're afraid. So sometimes they don't attack immediately. They follow you, let you see their shadows moving at the edges of your vision, let you hear their hissing sounds echoing in the tunnels. They want you to panic. They want you to run, because when you run, you get tired, and when you get tired, you get slow, and when you get slow, they attack. But not all creatures of the underworld are mindless monsters. The ghouls are different. Ghouls look like dogs with vaguely human faces. They walk on all 4s, have sparse, irregular fur, and their faces are elongated, with snouts and pointed ears. But in their eyes, you see intelligence, real intelligence. Because the ghouls aren't just monsters, they're a society. They have language, culture, alliances, and enmities. And most importantly, they can travel between the physical world and the Dreamlands freely. In the tunnels beneath cemeteries, in the physical world, in cities like Boston, London, Paris, There are passages, tunnels that connect our world to the Dreamlands, and the ghouls use these passages constantly. In the physical world, they emerge at night, unearth corpses, feed. In the Dreamlands, they hunt ghasts, trade with certain dreamers, and maintain their own kingdom in the underworld. But here's the most fascinating part. Ghouls aren't born that way. They become ghouls. A human who spends too much time in cemeteries, who develops a taste for dead things, who completely withdraws from human society. That human can slowly transform. The skin begins to change. The body contorts. The mind remains, but the body becomes ghoul. And that brings us to Richard Upton Pickman. Pickman was an artist, a painter from Boston who lived in the early 20th century. His paintings were disturbing. Horror scenes so realistic that people couldn't look at them without feeling nauseous. Pickman painted ghouls. People thought it was imagination, morbid talent. But the truth is that Pickman knew the ghouls. He had found a passage in the tunnels beneath Boston, a passage to the Dreamlands, and Pickman started spending more time down there than on the surface. He befriended the ghouls, learned their language, participated in their hunts, and slowly, over years, he transformed. When Randolph Carter encountered Pickman in the Dreamlands, decades after the artist's disappearance from the physical world, Pickman was no longer human. He was a ghoul, completely transformed. But he still remembered who he'd been, still spoke English, and he had become something important. The king of the ghouls of the Vale of Nath. Pickman helped Carter several times. He commanded hordes of ghouls to rescue Carter from shadow merchants. He provided information about the underground tunnels. He was living proof that humanity isn't fixed, that you can transform into something completely different and still maintain your essence. So the ghouls aren't just monsters. They're a civilization, a bridge between worlds, and proof that the line between human and monster is thinner than you think. Comment below if you'd take the risk of befriending the ghouls. In the frozen north of the Dreamlands, beyond mountains that scrape the sky, lies the plateau of Leng. No sane dreamer goes there willingly, because Leng is where nightmares are born. The plateau is a wasteland of grey stone and perpetual twilight. The air is thin and cold enough to freeze your lungs. Strange rock formations rise from the ground like the bones of dead titans. And in the distance, you can see monasteries carved into the mountainsides. The Men of Leng live there, the same horned creatures who pilot the black galleys. But on their home plateau, they're even more dangerous. They worship something ancient, something that existed before the gods of earth, something that sleeps beneath the stone. The monasteries are death traps. If you're foolish enough to enter one, you'll find halls lined with human skins, altars stained with blood centuries old, and deep in the lowest levels, chambers where the Men of Leng perform rituals that would drive a normal person insane just to witness. But the Men of Leng aren't the worst thing on the plateau. Sometimes, at night, you can see lights in the sky above Leng. Strange auroras that move with purpose, that seem to be searching for something. And if those lights find you, if they shine down on you, you'll feel your sanity start to crack. You'll hear whispers in languages that hurt to comprehend. You'll see visions of things that exist outside normal space and time. Those lights are the attention of what sleeps beneath Leng. And if it notices you, really notices you, you're better off dying immediately. Because what it does to those it finds interesting is worse than death. The Vale of Nath is where the ghouls have built their civilization. It's located in a deep canyon in the underworld, accessible only through the most dangerous tunnels. The Vale itself is surprisingly organized. The ghouls have carved dwellings into the canyon walls, created a complex network of paths and bridges, even established a crude form of government. They're not savages. They're a society that just happens to exist on the other side of civilization. In the center of the Vale is the charnel Guardians, massive necropolis where the ghouls cultivate their food supply. Bodies from the physical world, transported through the dimensional passages, are stored here. It's grotesque, yes, but it's also evidence of their planning and structure. Pickman rules from a structure the ghouls call the Bone Palace. It's built entirely from the remains of their prey-human and otherwise. Skulls form decorative patterns. Femurs serve as pillars. Ribs create intricate archways. It sounds horrific, but there's an artistry to it. A mad, morbid artistry that Pickman, the artist, would appreciate. The ghouls of Nath are surprisingly welcoming to visitors who approach with respect. They've learned that not all humans are enemies. Some, like Carter, can be valuable allies. They trade information, provide safe passage through the underworld, and occasionally join forces against common enemies. But never forget what they are. Never forget what they eat. The ghouls are friendly until they're hungry. And in the underworld, food can become scarce quickly. On the Cerulean Sea lies Ilikvad, the turquoise city. It's one of the most beautiful places in all the Dreamlands. Buildings of blue and green stone rise along terraced hillsides. Gardens overflow with flowers that bloom in impossible colors. The air smells of jasmine and sea salt, but Ilikvat has a dark secret. The city is built on the ruins of something much older, something that existed before humans ever dreamed. And sometimes, late at night, you can hear sounds coming from beneath the city. Rhythmic sounds, like breathing, like a heartbeat. The citizens of Ilikvad don't talk about it. If you ask, they'll change the subject quickly, their smiles becoming strained. Because they know, they all know, something sleeps beneath their beautiful city, and they pray it never wakes. Every year, during the festival of the Blue Moon, the city's priests perform a ritual. They descend into the deepest catacombs beneath the city, carrying offerings, food, wine, and sometimes, if the year has been bad, something more valuable. Nobody knows what they're offering to. Nobody wants to know. As long as the rituals continue, as long as the thing beneath stays asleep, Ilikvad remains the jewel of the Cerulean Sea. But if the rituals ever stopped, if whatever lies beneath ever woke up, well, there's a reason Ilikvad has no history older than 1,000 years. There's a reason the ruins beneath the city are from something that wasn't human. The current Ilikvad is beautiful, but it's built on the grave of something that came before, and graves sometimes open. Far out in the southern sea, beyond all trade routes, beyond where any sane sailor would venture, there's an island. It has no name. Maps that include it simply mark it as the nameless rock. The island is small, just a spike of black stone rising from the water. No plants grow there. No animals live there. It's completely barren, but sailors avoid it absolutely, because things happen near that rock. Ships that sail to close report their compasses spinning wildly. Crew members seeing things in the water, shapes that are too large to be whales, too purposeful to be currents. And always, always, the dreams. Everyone on a ship that passes the nameless rock has the same dream that night. They dream of cities beneath the ocean. Cities of stone and coral, inhabited by things that were never human. They dream of those things looking up, seeing the ship, becoming aware. And when they wake, the crew is always missing someone. One person, always one, who can't be found anywhere on the ship, like they simply vanished during the night. The nameless rock is a marker, a warning. It's the point where the Dreamlands touch something else, something deeper, something that exists beneath even the dream realm. Smart dreamers give it a wide berth, because whatever is down there, whatever those cities contain, it's not part of the Dreamlands proper. It's something older, something that predates dreams themselves. Drop a like if this is getting darker than you expected. The Dreamlands are ruled by the gods of Earth, but don't mistake them for the deities of human religion. These gods are petty, capricious, and mostly concerned with their own entertainment. They live in Dylath-Leen, the unknown city on the cold waste. Nobody knows exactly where Dylath-Leen is. It moves. It shifts position in the Dreamlands, deliberately hiding itself from mortals. The gods don't want visitors. They don't want worship. They want to be left alone to dance and feast and play their incomprehensible games. These gods look vaguely human but wrong. Too tall, too thin. Their faces are beautiful but alien. Their eyes reflect things that don't exist in normal space. When they speak, reality ripples around their words. They created the Dreamlands as a playground, a place separate from the physical universe where they could shape reality according to their whims. They set the rules that dreamers could visit but must follow certain laws, that certain creatures would be banished to the underworld, that certain regions would be forbidden. But they're inconsistent. Sometimes they punish mortals for minor infractions. Sometimes they ignore massive violations of their laws. It all depends on their mood, on whether they're bored that day, on whether a mortal has somehow caught their attention. Randolph Carter sought them out, traveled to Dylath-Leen to ask them to restore his access to a dream city he'd lost. And what he found there changed him forever. Because the gods aren't benevolent, they're not evil either. They're beyond such human concepts. They're forces of nature wearing flesh that resembles gods. But above the gods of Earth stands something else. Something that makes even those capricious deities seem comprehensible by comparison. Nyarlathotep. He has 1,000 names and 1,000 forms. The crawling chaos, the haunter of the dark, the black pharaoh, the faceless god. He appears differently to everyone. taking whatever shape will achieve his goals. Unlike the gods of Earth, who mostly ignore mortals, Nyarlathotep is fascinated by them. He walks among dreamers, disguised as a traveler, a merchant, a wise man. He offers deals, makes promises, provides exactly what people think they want, and then he ruins them. Nyarlathotep doesn't just kill. That's too simple. He corrupts. He shows you truths that break your mind. He gives you power and then ensures you use it to destroy yourself. He's the messenger of the outer gods, the great powers that exist beyond all reality, and his purpose is simple: chaos. In the Dreamlands, he's especially dangerous because the rules there are fluid. He can manipulate reality in ways impossible in the physical world. He can appear as your deepest desire or your worst nightmare. He can offer you kingdoms or destroy your sanity with a single word. Carter encountered him multiple times. Each time, Nyarlathotep wore a different face, sometimes helpful, sometimes threatening, always manipulating events toward some incomprehensible goal. The worst part, Nyarlathotep doesn't need to win. He doesn't have goals in the way we understand them. He's chaos incarnate. He acts because causing disruption amuses him, because watching reality unravel at his touch satisfies something in his incomprehensible nature. If you ever meet someone in the Dreamlands who seems too helpful, too knowledgeable, too perfect, run, because it might be him. And if it is, you're already part of whatever game he's playing. Your only hope is to be boring enough that he loses interest before he destroys you. Beyond the gods of Earth, beyond even Nyarlathotep, exist the other gods. The blind idiot god Azathoth sits at the center of ultimate chaos, mindlessly gnawing while flute-playing demons dance around him. He's the nuclear chaos at the heart of infinity. If he ever truly woke, if he ever became aware, all of reality would cease to exist. Around him dance the servitors, the lesser outer gods, beings like Azathoth, who exists in all times and places simultaneously. Like Shub-Niggurath, the black goat of the woods with 1,000 young. Like Cthulhu, dreaming in his dead city beneath the ocean. These beings don't care about the Dreamlands. They barely notice its existence. But their mere presence in the cosmic order affects everything. They're like storms in the fabric of reality. You don't want their attention. You don't want to exist on a plane where they can see you. The Dreamlands exist in a pocket of relative stability. The gods of Earth maintain it, keep it separate from the chaos beyond. But that protection is fragile. There are cracks, places where the other gods can peek through. Regions like the Plateau of Leng, where the boundaries thin. Smart dreamers stay away from those places. Stay in the civilized regions, the cities, the well-traveled roads, because out in the wild places, where reality gets thin, you might catch the attention of something that exists beyond dreams, beyond nightmares, beyond sanity itself. So let's establish the hierarchy, the pecking order of the Dreamlands. At the bottom, normal dreamers, people who wander the dream realm without really understanding where they are. They're tourists, temporary visitors who leave little impact. Above them, conscious dreamers, People like Carter who understand the nature of the Dreamlands and can navigate them deliberately. They're permanent residents when they sleep. They build relationships, gain knowledge, achieve goals. Above them, the inhabitants, the cats of Ulthar, the ghouls, the Zoogs, the merchants of Dylath-Leen. Beings who exist primarily or entirely in the dream realm. They're citizens where dreamers are visitors. Above them, the monsters, the Gugs, the ghasts, the moon beasts, powerful creatures that were either banished or created by the gods. They're forces of nature, dangerous but comprehensible. Above them, the gods of earth, powerful beings who shaped the Dreamlands and maintain its laws. Capricious, but generally bound by their own rules. They can be bargained with, though it's dangerous. Above them, Nyarlathotep, the wild card, the one who serves the truly cosmic powers, but maintains enough independence to pursue his own chaotic agenda. He's beyond the gods of Earth, but still somewhat bound to their reality. And above everything, the other gods, the truly cosmic entities, Azathoth, Yog-Sothoth, beings so far beyond comprehension that even thinking about them too hard is dangerous. They exist in dimensions where the Dreamlands is just a speck of dust in an infinite void. Understanding this hierarchy is crucial for survival. Know what you can fight, what you can bargain with, and what you must simply avoid at all costs. Subscribe if you want to understand more about these cosmic hierarchies. Randolph Carter's greatest journey began with a loss. He had once been able to visit a dream city of incredible beauty, a place of sunset skies and marble temples, of gardens and fountains, a city more perfect than anything in the waking world. But one day, he couldn't find it anymore. The city vanished from his dreams. No matter how hard he tried, no matter what technique he used, he couldn't get back. So Carter decided to do something unprecedented. He decided to find Kadath, the home of the gods, and demand that they restore his access to the lost city. Nobody had ever deliberately sought Kadath. Nobody knew exactly where it was. The gods had hidden it specifically to avoid mortal visitors. But Carter was determined. He was perhaps the most experienced conscious dreamer who had ever lived. If anyone could do it, he could. His journey took years in dream time. He traveled to the edges of the known Dreamlands. He descended into the underworld and befriended the ghouls. He crossed the Cerulean Sea and ventured into frozen wastes where no human had gone before. He faced the Men of Leng on their plateau. He survived encounters with night gaunts, those faceless, flying horrors that serve Nyarlathotep. He traded information with cats, bargained with ghouls, and narrowly escaped being captured by slavers from Dylath-Leen. And finally, after impossible hardships, he founded Kadath, the city of onyx where the gods dwell. He climbed the endless stairs. He passed the guardian entities. He entered the great hall where the gods feast and dance. And he made his demand. The gods laughed at him, not cruelly, almost fondly, like you'd laugh at a child who doesn't understand how the world works. They told him the truth. The city he sought, the perfect dream city he had lost, wasn't something they had created. It wasn't even in the Dreamlands proper. It was something else. Something he had created himself from fragments of memory and imagination. The city was his childhood home. Boston, but not the real Boston. An idealized version, filtered through memory and longing. The sunset city of his dreams was a mixture of his grandfather's house, the streets he'd walked as a boy, the feeling of wonder he'd had before adult cynicism set in. And he couldn't access it anymore because he had changed. He had grown. He had seen too much of the real Dreamlands. His consciousness could no longer maintain that innocent, perfect vision because he was no longer innocent. The gods told him he could never go back, not because they prevented it, but because you can't unknow what you've learned. You can't unsee what you've witnessed. Carter had traveled too far, learned too much. His dream city of childhood wonder was lost forever, not because the gods took it, but because he had outgrown it. It was the cruelest answer possible, because it meant his quest had been pointless from the start. There was nothing to demand, nothing to bargain for, nothing to win back. The thing he sought was lost the moment he decided to seek it. The story doesn't end there, because as Carter stood before the gods, devastated by this revelation, something else happened. Nyarlathotep appeared. He offered Carter a deal. The crawling chaos told him that he could have his city back. All Carter had to do was serve, become an agent of chaos, use his knowledge of both worlds to further Nyarlathotep's incomprehensible goals. And for a moment, Carter was tempted. Who wouldn't be? To get back what you've lost, all you have to do is sell your soul to a cosmic entity of chaos and madness. Totally reasonable. But Carter refused, because he finally understood something fundamental. The city he remembered so perfectly wasn't real. It had never been real. It was a dream of a dream, poor, and chasing it had taken him away from something more important, actually living. He had spent years in the Dreamlands seeking something from his past instead of experiencing the present. He had seen wonders beyond imagination, but barely noticed them because he was focused on what he'd lost. So Carter made a different choice. He thanked the gods for their honesty. He rejected Nyarlathotep's offer, and he decided to continue exploring the Dreamlands, not searching for something specific, but simply experiencing whatever he found. Because that's the real lesson of the Dreamlands. It's not about achieving some perfect goal. It's not about reaching some idealized destination. It's about the journey itself. The wonders you see, the friends you make, the monsters you survive, the stories you live. Carter returned to his explorations. He never found his dream city again, but he found 1,000 other wonders. He became the greatest explorer the Dreamlands have ever known, not because he achieved his goal, but because he learned to let it go. Comment below what lesson you take from Carter's journey. So now you know. You know the geography of the Dreamlands. You know the ritual to enter consciously. You know the monsters that hunt there and the gods that rule it. You know Carter's story and the cosmic hierarchy that exists above it all. But before you decide to try this yourself, remember a few things. First, the Dreamlands are real, but they're not safe. They're not some fantasy playground where nothing truly bad can happen. People die there. People go mad there. People get trapped there forever. Just because it's a dream realm doesn't mean there aren't consequences. Second, the deeper you go, the harder it is to come back. Every journey into the Dreamlands changes you. And if you go too deep, stay too long, learn too much, you might find that the waking world no longer feels real, that your life here becomes the dream, and that realm becomes your reality. Third, not everyone is meant to be a conscious dreamer. Most people who try the 700 steps will fail. They'll either fall into normal sleep or wake up before reaching the portal. And that's okay. It might even be better, because once you can enter the Dreamlands consciously, once you really know it's there, you can never truly forget. You can never fully come back to normal life. Fourth, respect the hierarchy. Treat the cats well. Avoid the Zoogs. Never trust the Men of Leng. Bargain carefully with the ghouls. And if you ever encounter Nyarlathotep in any of his forms, be very, very careful what you agree to. The Dreamlands exist. They're there every night when you close your eyes. Whether you experience them consciously or just wander through the edges, half aware, doesn't change their reality. Some of you watching this will try the ritual tonight. Some of you will manage to descend the 700 steps. A few might even reach the portal. And of those few, maybe 1 or 2 will actually enter the Dreamlands with full consciousness. If you're one of them, remember what I've taught you. Remember the geography, the monsters, the gods. Remember Carter's lesson. Remember that wonders exist, but so do horrors. Remember that some things in the universe are beautiful and some are terrible, and many are both at once. And if you find yourself standing on a smooth stone road beneath a sky of impossible colors, if you smell spices you've never encountered, and hear voices speaking languages that don't exist in the waking world, if you see in the distance the towers of cities that were never built by human hands, welcome home, fellow dreamer. Welcome to the Dreamlands. Your real adventure is just beginning. If this video blew your mind, hit that like button. Subscribe for more deep dives into Lovecraftian lore and cosmic horror. Share this with someone who needs to understand that dreams are more than they seem. And tonight, when you close your eyes, count the steps. Descend slowly. Maybe you'll find the portal. Maybe you'll meet the Guardians. Maybe you'll step through into a realm of wonders and nightmares. Or maybe you'll just have a normal dream. But you'll never know unless you try. I am the Insane Dreamer, and I'll see you in the Dreamlands, or in the next video, whichever comes first. Sweet dreams, or should I say, safe travels.